My wife Taylor and I moved out of our previous house not too long ago. She wasn't fond of being so close to her relatives and wanted some space between us and them, so we followed through on that. We don't have any children, and she left the workforce quite a while back, so she was fairly open to my ideas about relocating. I work as an electrician, so moving around isn't a big deal for me. We ultimately chose New Mexico. We both always lived in the countryside, so the change wasn't all that drastic. That was roughly 3 months ago. We came across an incredible deal on a property deep in the countryside. The house is honestly bigger than we really need, especially since it's just the two of us and our black lab, Lola. But we figured the extra space wouldn't go to waste. Maybe we'd even have some guests over down the line. A few months after we got settled in, I started noticing something unusual. The upstairs lights kept tripping the circuit, even though the rest of the house stayed powered. After it occurred a couple of times, I immediately recognized what was going on. Like I mentioned, electrical work is what I do for a living. This kind of stuff is second nature to me. I assumed it would be a quick fix. Probably just needed to redistribute the load on the breaker panel, which I figured was located in the basement. Situations like this make me glad I can handle things myself. Honestly, I hadn't spent much time in the basement since we first moved. There hadn't really been any reason to. We briefly checked it out when the realtor showed us the home, but I didn't give it a thorough look. Now that I think about it, I hadn't set foot down there once since then. Anyway, I made my way downstairs and started scanning the space for the main breaker. The basement was a bit of a mess. Definitely more of a catch-all storage area than a finished space. Eventually, I located the panel and got to work. After around 10 minutes, I figured out where the imbalance was and decided I'd come back to rewire it when I had more time. I was just about to head back upstairs when curiosity nudged me. Since I was already down there, I figured it wouldn't hurt to poke around a little. It did feel odd that I didn't really know the ins and outs of my own home yet. Like I said, most of the basement was full of outdated furniture and miscellaneous junk. Nothing particularly notable stood out, and I decided that trying to clean the place up would be more trouble than it was worth. That's when something caught my eye. In the far corner, behind a stack of old wooden chairs, was a large metallic door. It immediately struck me as out of place, not a typical interior door at all. It was taller and seemed more reinforced than usual. As I approached, it became clear that this wasn't just a heavy-duty door. It looked like something you'd find on a vault or panic room. My first assumption was maybe it was a storm shelter or a safe room. Still, it seemed odd that the realtor hadn't mentioned such a feature. I attempted to open it, but the handle was stuck, locked tight. I went upstairs and rifled through the drawer of miscellaneous keys the previous owners had left behind, probably for emergencies or forgotten locks, but none of them fit. I must have tried at least 15 keys to no avail. Eventually, I told Taylor about it, and she was just as intrigued. Somehow, don't ask me how, she managed to get in touch with the former owners. That conversation took my concern to a whole new level. They were a bit strange over the phone. Lots of pauses, like they were carefully choosing their words or trying to avoid saying something outright. Looking back, I really wish I'd recorded that call. When I brought up the door, there was a long silence. Finally, The wife said it was a tornado shelter. I explained that was fine, but it was locked and we couldn't get in. After another awkward pause, she claimed the key had been lost and advised us to just leave it be. That struck me as odd, especially considering they left us keys for all sorts of less important doors. The tone in her voice made my stomach turn, but there wasn't anything I could do about it. The call ended quickly after that. Clearly, they had no interest in chatting. Taylor tried to brush it off and told me I was reading too much into it, but I couldn't shake it. Over the following weeks, I occasionally found myself wandering down to the basement just to stare at that door, wondering what it might be hiding. I even tried every trick I knew from work to get it open, but the lock held firm. I gave up for a bit, maybe a week or so, but eventually the curiosity won out again. That brings us to 2 days ago, when everything took a bizarre turn. At Taylor's suggestion, I hired a locksmith. He came by and got to work. About half an hour later, I went down to check on him. He mentioned that the locking mechanism was unusually advanced for what should have been a standard panic room. His words, not mine. I was worried he'd hit a dead end, but to my surprise, he got it open after another 30 minutes. I honestly wish he hadn't. Inside was a strange setup, like some kind of altar. The walls were lined with old black and white photos, each one defaced with odd symbols I didn't recognize. A single chair sat in the center of the room, facing a blank wall. It looked like someone had spent a lot of time just sitting there staring. Off in one corner was a cot with rumpled blankets, and the air had a stale, sour smell. Scattered around were empty snack bags and crumpled water bottles. That's when it hit me. Someone had been living down here, and not too long ago either. I was stunned. I didn't think it could get any worse, but of course it did. As I was trying to wrap my head around it, I noticed another door, this one smaller, tucked away in the shadows on the right side. I opened it and found a staircase leading to the cellar door outside. I felt like a complete idiot. I hadn't even considered checking that door when we moved in, assuming it led straight to the basement. Not once had I opened it since we arrived. Realization turned to dread. Someone had been living in our house. Literally living here. All the weird little things we'd brushed off suddenly made sense. Items going missing. We chalked it up to Taylor's forgetfulness, which wasn't uncommon. But now that excuse didn't cut it. Someone had been inside with us the whole time. I repeated that thought over and over before it sank in. I tried to contact the previous owners again, demanded answers, even considered legal threats, but they wouldn't pick up. Either they disconnected their number or were flat out ignoring us. Taylor was beside herself. I wasn't far behind. That night, I blocked off the cellar door from the inside using heavy furniture. I wrapped it in a thick chain and padlocked it. I didn't care what it took. Nobody was getting back in that way. We filed a full report with the police. They promised to look into it and try to reach the former owners. We also notified our realtor, who was appalled and said she'd cooperate fully. Later that night, while we were getting ready for bed, it happened. A loud knock rattled the front door. Lola sprang up, barking wildly. Taylor and I froze. Neither of us moved, just listened in silence. After a while, the banging stopped. Then we heard the soft clink of pebbles hitting our bedroom window. Taylor clung to Lola while I moved to the window. She begged me not to, but I was livid. In my mind, I was ready to confront whoever was out there. I grabbed a baseball bat from under the bed and yanked open the curtain, but there was nothing. We thought it was over. Taylor wanted to call the cops, but part of me was determined to handle it myself. I figured the police would just scare them off, and selfishly, I wanted them caught. I told her I'd call if anything else happened. Then I heard it, a window breaking downstairs. I ran down just in time to catch a glimpse of two figures sprinting away from the house. The kitchen window was shattered. That's when I called the police, and they arrived shortly after. They searched the property and the basement, but found no sign of a break-in to the locked room. No sign of the intruders either. Their theory was that whoever had been squatting down there got mad after being locked out and came back to mess with us. I was equal parts angry and terrified. Taylor has been a mess ever since. The case has been escalated since actual damage was done, and the police are working on locating the previous homeowners, but they said it could take time. It's been 2 days now, and we still haven't heard anything. I think the police scared those people off for now. They haven't been back. But I can't believe something like this actually happened. If we don't get a response soon, I honestly don't know what we'll do next. I'm ready to protect my home if it comes to that, but I hope it never does.